Are the 19Ts really that much better than the 17Ts? Stay tuned to find out if it's really that much better. Right, this definitely could have been bad. It is not even on the turbo. Guys, welcome back to another video. This one's going to be a little bit different because we're moving away from the Jeep and going back to the BMW. It's a 2008 BMW 335xi e92, and currently it's basically full bolt-ons along with upgraded 17T turbos. One issue that I've been having with these eBay 17T Viv turbos is that currently they are about 3 years old and have about 25,000 miles on them. I have noticed I'm not able to get as high of a boost as I was targeting before. Just one day I couldn't target 24, 25 PSI any longer. And then it started puffing out smoke every time I let off the gas. I did check for vacuum leaks, boost solenoids, PVC valve. So I figured the next step would be replacing these eBay turbos. So I did get some 19Ts, version 4. So they're the ones that disconnect or unbolt from the manifold. So let's go ahead and check those out. But first, let's play a little bit and kind of see what we can get for boost and go from there. There I was targeting 24.5 and I was only able to get 21, where before I noticed I'm starting to go bad, I was able to target 24, 25 easily at like 60-70% wastegate duty cycle. So this is a big change, definitely. Do a little anti-lag. So let's head on back and see if we can get them turbos swapped out. So let's take a look at these 19Ts from eBay. They're not from Viv, but they are probably the same exact ones, just from a Chinese manufacturer. So let's go take a peek. Here we are to check out the new 19T turbos. These are purchased from eBay. They are not the Viv version, but they say they are the version 4, and you can see that it unbolts from the actual manifold, the turbo housing does. So that's kind of shown in the newer 4th version, or version 4. So hopefully these eBay turbos were upgraded just like the Viv turbos were supposedly upgraded. Time will tell. But they are actually a pretty good looking turbo, but that's what I said about the 17T Viv turbos that I currently have on the car right now. But they did last me a good 25,000 miles at about 24 PSI of boost. So I really, 3 years on $1,000 turbo is not bad. And I've even got the spool helix on there, so I've been kind of pushing them. Definitely could say that. So today we're going to be pulling off these turbos. When we are actually reinstalling, that's when I'll go over the torque specs of everything. That way you can follow along and kind of do it yourself with having all the information in one quick video. On the video description, I will post all of the torque specs that I use, so be sure to check that out. That way you've got them all in one handy spot for you. And one more thing, this is an all-wheel drive car, so I will show you some of the differences that we have to deal with when changing the turbos when you have the X drive. It's a little bit tighter up there. The downpipes, you don't have as much room. All right, so let's start taking the tires and getting some work done. Alright, since I have these aftermarket inlets, I don't really have enough room to kind of get up under here to take off the boost solenoid and this little heat shield. So we're going to start underneath the car. We'll take off the subframe, and we'll be able to lift up the engine a little bit. It'll tilt it over, and that'll give us more room to take off these inlets, and then actually get to the upper exhaust manifold down there. You can see how I have the actual tool on here. This is like the tow hook, but this is what we use to support the engine. Then I have this brace from Harbor Freight. Used it many times already, and it works perfectly. Alright, another difference with the all-wheel drive version is we got this big skid plate here that we need to take off. So we'll need to remove that. But first we will remove all the plastic covers. And then we also need to remove these control arms. 21mm tie rod. Control arm that is a 19mm. We'll have to hold the other side of the bolt with a wrench. Then you got to undo the rear control arm. It's a 19mm. Keep all your bolts organized. And you got to take off the sway bar, 17mm. And then you can repeat all of this on the other side. Don't forget your headlight level adjustment. That is on the driver side. That's attached to one of the lower control arms. That way you don't break that off. 10mm nut. Alright, under the front of the car we've got these power steering lines. We've got a coolant hose, and we've got the sway bar. They kind of put these weird brackets in here, so what I would suggest is taking out these little 10mm bolts. There's 2 of them. And then you can reach up on top. Hard to see with the GoPro. Behind these brackets up on top there are more 2 10mm bolts. There's one on this side, and then again there's one on this other side up above. The next step, you'll be able to remove the sway bar to kind of fish it out of these lines. So it's a little bit tight, kind of a weird thing they do with the all-wheel drive version. Angle that I'm putting this wrench up here. I'm using a ratcheting wrench. One more bolt right there that holds the water lines. That is on the driver's side. So now you could take off the sway bar. And it is a 13mm socket for those bolts. Alright, the next bolts are for the rack and pinion. These are E12s, or inverted Torx 12. And you gotta hold the top side of it with a 16mm wrench. There's a nut up top there. And there's 2 of those, one on both sides. Next we need to remove the bolts from the motor mounts. I'm leaving the motor mounts attached to the motor first, and I'm removing the bolts out of the bottom of the actual subframe. 2 E12 Torx. Passenger side, you have to remove this little shield before you can remove the subframe. Alright, one main difference with the all-wheel drive version is if you look real close, The way the rack and pinion go onto the subframe can't just come out directly down. It actually gets pinched between like two brackets on the subframe. So the actual rack and pinion has to get removed towards the rear of the vehicle first. So you can see if I like stuck a pry bar in here, you can see how it moves outward. That's the direction it has to go before the actual subframe can go down. So, see how it's cleared now? You gotta do the same on both sides. That's what makes this a little bit tricky. And then to hold the rack and pinion towards the motor, you just get a little bungee cord to hold it up. You can use it from the tie rod ends. Do it on both sides. Alright, next we need to remove the 6 bolts for the subframe. 18mm bolts. Just make sure you leave, you know, 2 of them or 1 of them on each side in to hold it up until you get some support under here to lower it down. At this time, you want to take up some slack onto the motor brace so you can start to lift up the motor. I've got the jack under the cross member or subframe to support it. So you can go and take out the last bolt. All right, then you can start to lower it down. Should be able to move it forward enough to get the rack and pinion out from it. So I had to stick a little pry bar up in there to get that out from those the bracket there. This is the driver's side. These are the brackets that I was talking about. The rack and pinion slip underneath there, so you gotta slide it backwards so that way this piece can go down. And then those are those 3 little 10mm bolts that are up top. Alright, at this point we can remove the thermostat housing, the water pump, and then we're gonna have to remove this other engine mount. First we'll remove the downpipes. I'm gonna drain the oil and the coolant right now. Thermostat disconnected. Got the water pump all the way out. Got the V-bands loosened up. I'm actually going to try to leave the O2 sensors in there. And you'll have to kind of tap them free because sometimes they get pretty stuck on the actual downpipes. This one's loosened. This one I gotta kind of break free. You gotta undo the bolts from the actual stock exhaust. Whenever you're putting the or messing with the V-bands, it's best to actually push the V-bands onto the actual turbos first, and that will get it up out of the way. That way you can sneak down the actual exhaust. Alright, and I was actually able to get the downpipes down with the sensors still in them. Kind of just makes it reinstalling a little bit easier. Don't have to worry about mixing nothing up. So now we're going to remove these 1, 2, 3, 4 Torx bolts to get the actual motor mount off the motor. This definitely could have been bad. See this rear turbo inlet? It is not even on the turbo. One little puddle could have sucked up as much water as it wanted to. We have officially made it to the turbos. So we're gonna start by, we're gonna remove this water pipe, remove these feed lines here, remove the outlets, a couple oil drainage lines, oil feed line that goes behind, you know, a couple things we gotta do. So we will just keep on taking things apart. Right, we've got the that water pipe out. We've got the outlets disconnected. The inlet's disconnected, even though this one wasn't even on the turbo. So now we're going to work on getting these all these different oil and coolant inlets and outlets disconnected from the turbos. We'll remove the boost solenoids, and then we'll be able to remove most of these manifold bolts from the top. I've got most of the oil lines loosened up. There are some oil feed lines on the top side of the turbo that I left. The coolant feed line that connects to the block on the top side, I took it off the turbo, but I left it connected to the block. Same with the rear side. Here's that other coolant line that I left in the actual block. If you get it spinning before you put it on the actual bolt, it will help break it free. Make sure you got all of your all the bolts out. Alright guys, this part of the video I wanted to do a little bit of a side-by-side comparison compared to the 3-year-old 17Ts from Viv or the brand new 19Ts, the V4 version 4. So let's you can already see comparable difference in size. Like, look at the actual exhaust manifold here. It doesn't actually kind of narrow down real tight, kind of like this one does. Alright, so let's take a measurement from here. We'll zero it out. And then we'll go to the same spot on this turbo. 156 thousandths bigger, the actual thickness of the hot portion of the turbo. You can see it in there. Let's see how narrow it gets coming off the manifold. And then I would say this is probably the most narrow spot right here. So it's 57 thousandths. I think it gets, I feel like it gets tighter. Like even right here. It doesn't measure as too much bigger, but it doesn't have such a big bottleneck. Like this kind of portion where right here it gets real tight in there, and this kind of stays a little bit bigger. Let's go ahead and measure the actual inlet. So let's start with this one over here. Zero it. And let's go to this one. So this actual inside of the inlet portion is 69 thousandths bigger, so it's actually bigger on here too. They are both the 2-inch inlets, but the 19T is bigger actually. So there is a little bit of a difference there. Measures 1 inch and 800 thousandths. And let's go over to the 17Ts. 1 inch and 730 thousandths. Next part I want to measure is the actual cold side of the turbo. Let's zero it. Measure in the same spot. And those are fairly the same, so I'd say they definitely seem to be good quality. They are like the rivets here. The blade count's the same on both. The design's a little bit different. One thing actually is these 17Ts, when I bought them, the wastegate on one of them was sticking. So I actually had to take the turbos out a year after, not even a year, 6 months after owning them. And I had to buy new actual wastegates to put inside there. So I had actually, you can see I welded that on there. It was the same on both of them. Can't see the other ones on the other side, but so that's not fun. It was actually sticking, so it would tighten and it would stay closed. So that was not a good issue to have. So I don't think there's a lot more slop in these, so at least I won't have that issue. All right, and then the last difference that I noticed, I want you to look at this housing. Okay, you can see, let's take this off so we can have a comparison. See the bolt pattern here? Kind of see the size of this? And let's go to the other one. And look at the size of that housing difference. Like this portion of it compared to that. Get a little measurement going. Zero it. It is almost half of an inch bigger. So that is quite a big difference in that portion too. You can see this little V-band compared to this one. That is a big difference. Tiny, not so tiny. So now that we've made our comparison, it's time to prep the side of the engine, and then we will kind of get these turbos ready for installing. So stay tuned for the installation.